Topic of today's event is the future of digital in Sri Lanka, and we as Kimi claiming that this is programmatic. How do you see the digital from your company perspective? So we have two telcos and two agencies sitting here. So I believe guests from telecoms can discuss what are you doing and where is the future of yours, and then from agency side you can tell us how do you see your clients from other industries are shifting, and where is the future of Sri Lanka?
Yeah, so from an organization or from a telco perspective, let's say, I think partly telcos are responsible for driving digital in Sri Lanka. So I think I would say as a industry, we've embraced in actually driving the consumer towards adapting a lot of digital technologies, and we have also looked at how we benefit out of it as well, while a lot of others benefit out of it. So from an industry perspective, we are one of the industries that are always looking at new ways of adapting new marketing technologies, while we actually drive the consumer towards it. So for example, when programmatic came into Sri Lanka, I believe in terms of actually commercially, we were one of the first organizations to try it out, and we are quite happy with what we see. Because one of the aspects that we see is that the proper targeting and the precision targeting to some extent that the technology offers is something that we've been looking forward to. So I think in that sense we adapt it faster. And also from a spend perspective, we've been actually topping up our budgets on digital quite aggressively over the years. In fact, every quarterly we seem to kind of enhance our digital budgets more than the traditional budgets that's happening. So from that perspective, I see that Sri Lanka is in the right way forward, and we are leading that in some sense. And also what I see is that there is also a lot of opportunity for others as well. Simply from a perspective of that, the penetration of smartphones are very high in Sri Lanka right now. And I think with 3G and 4G also playing a big role, very soon you will find we're reaching about 80% of penetration in terms of internet on mobile. So which means it's presenting a bigger platform for people to reach out to them.
Yeah, actually adding to what Yadav mentioned about the telco category being actually in the forefront of digital revolution in Sri Lanka, from agency's perspective, my experience with Neo Ogilvy is actually, we were lucky to work with two telcos early in our evolution as an agency. I mean, when we first started back in 2011, we worked first with Mobitel, and then we started working with Etisalat. That helped us as an agency to grow faster, evolve faster, because telco being an industry which adapts digital technology so fast, so it helped us a lot as an agency to actually grow. Looking at where we are now compared to like 6-7 years ago, I see now a lot of the things are starting to happen, right? I mean, almost for last 6-7 years, there had been a lot of talks, discussions, forums, and so many things, but end of the day, nothing happens. But now we see things are happening. People are now how to say, serious about digital, and they are keen on doing new things, experimenting things, and overall we see that the workload has gone up for certain clients in our FMCG sector. That, I mean, that's a sector which is actually getting very much active. I mean, like 3 years ago, FMCGs in Sri Lanka were not that active. I mean, apart from placing a banner ad here and there, they were not very much keen on actually experimenting digital. So, but now we see, especially this year, we see a lot of our FMCG clients are starting to do a lot more stuff on digital. And I'm sure, I mean, right across all the other categories, this will be the case. So probably Safwan may be in a good position to actually talk about FMCGs more than me, since he hands Sri Lanka's biggest FMCG advertiser.
Thanks, Amita. So yeah, in terms of evolution, we've been lucky enough to kind of work with one of the top FMCG players in Sri Lanka, and we had also had the opportunity to learn a lot of things from best-in-class practices. So the evolution has been right now. So we've been trying out new things, and like Amita said, in the last 5 to 7 years, digital has always been an afterthought, and it has been like, okay, by the way, let's put some money on digital. But now what we're seeing is right across from Unilever to right across our clients, they're asking the right questions. They are always questioning us, how can digital improve their sort of marketing sort of objectives? How can digital help them achieve marketing objectives? And they are also having a focused budget rather than a by-the-way budget. They're actually allocating money for digital and then asking us questions, what can this do? So we are, I think, coming to that level playing field where we can actually give out great solutions. And also in terms of evolution, it's also important that the market moves as one. From the client side, from the publisher side, agency side, etc. So I think I also want to thank Eskimi for having this sort of event, because only in forums such as this, where all players, all stakeholders can come to a level playing field in sort of cascading this knowledge. So stuff like this is very important, where we share our ideas and knowledge, because the clients, the publishers, they all are now at a certain level where you can work a lot further. So
yeah. So again, I come from a brand that believes in delivering the future today. So data and the related ecosystem plays a huge role in that, in delivering the inclusivity right across to all Sri Lankans alike. Similarly, we also believe that the same technology can be used to reach out to our customers. So I mean, right throughout the day, you've heard how digital works. So that's what we believe as well, and we've been experimenting with all sorts of approaches. And at the start, the technology wasn't as developed to what is now available today. So that's why we are very happy for DSPs and DMPs like Eskimi also to kind of come and open their doors to Sri Lanka, so that we also kind of can take it to the next level, where, because I don't know, most of you might be reading case studies of campaigns that are being carried out in the West and the Europe, where people have done this, but we end up having like only a marginal amount of features on the platforms that we have. So I think this is a very good start, and along with the technology, I'm seeing a lot of folks in marketing also maturing to what digital is, because for the longest time, digital was just putting a post on Facebook, right? So I think we've kind of now slowly taking the next steps, looking at targeting, like Amita said, how you kind of identify your target audience rather than looking at very spray and pray kind of approaches. So I think it's only there's a lot to go, and there's a lot of potential, and we're very happy to be here. Yeah.
Well, the panel has the most digital-friendly clients here. Because if you look at the medium itself, the biggest spenders are telcos, banks, and then followed by media. Media might not be so in this part of the region, but otherwise, if you look at the subcontinent, these are the three categories that dominate digital. Coming to programmatic again, at least we have been exposed to the most basic form of programmatic. The Facebook and Google dashboards have taught us that. So it's not entirely alien to us anymore, right? So we are learning the ropes yet. But what also will happen is, what will foster the growth of programmatic is a lot of evolution in the buyer behavior as well. If you look at the entire, the subcontinent itself, programmatic grows where e-com is fostered, right? Wherein you lead the buyer to the point of making the purchase. That's where it grows. That's when it peaks. E-com is not really huge yet, right? It's growing very rapidly, but it's not there yet. In very close by markets, e-com forms about 10% of your overall retail. So we have some distance to go, but yes, the good part is that internet penetration is great here. People are using smartphones faster and they're learning very quickly. So that's the good sign. But I think it's just a phase. We are catching up very fast. And the good part is we don't have to learn programmatic from scratch. Few things have taught us the basics at least. And yeah, I mean, we have to start with these categories. As soon as we move towards getting to the transaction point sooner and start making those transactions online, that's where, we'll start chasing the user more seriously. And that's when programmatic will boom big time.
Is it work? Yeah, it is. So, but how came that market itself is really different and clients are really different? Because if we see other markets where Eskimi are operating, in general, the growth is coming all together with all brands. Of course, there are some leaders who are into new technology first, but basically, if major clients, same Unilever or telcos, are starting to spend and spending heavily, other clients are following. So how came that in Sri Lanka there are like top 5, 10 brands that are spending on digital and spending heavily, but others seems to stay in the traditional kind of media, traditional media buying perspective. So where would be the problem? What do you think? I believe this question is more for agency guys. Are the clients not brave enough, or what's the issue?
Well, I think it's actually who is going to make the first strike in the category. So that's kind of a behavior that we see. I mean, I don't want to name the category. I mean, a recent meeting that I had recently. So this point came up. Okay, so you look at what are the media spends of all the players in the category on digital or on other mediums, and then you look at, okay, nobody's really aggressive. Right? Everybody's maintaining their status quo, and the category is doing well in the sense, it's okay. So why should we stimulate competition by all of a sudden spending more on digital? And so these type of attitudes or mindsets that I observed in certain categories, right? But what we see. I was having this discussion with Yadav while we were having a chat. Every category in Sri Lanka, especially in consumer goods industry, who is currently totally reliant on traditional forms of marketing, traditional forms of distribution, traditional forms of advertising, is actually vulnerable to get attacked or get actually targeted by someone who would make a bold move to completely go digital in terms of distribution channels, right? In terms of communication channels and in terms of everything about marketing, they can totally disrupt that category. Like what happened with Dollar Shave Club case study, Dollar Shave Club versus Gillette, right? Even if it not happen today, maybe in a year or two, there is this vulnerability for every category in Sri Lanka where someone from somewhere, out of nowhere, a totally new brand comes out and do everything digitalized, and you capture, let's say, 20, 25, 30% of the market overnight. There is a possibility.
So basically now life is too easy for brands, and they are really comfortable, and there is no need for fighting. Exactly. Telcos are fighting. We are fighting everywhere. And they need to acquire customers from other telcos. So that might be the reason that the economy is too good in Sri Lanka.
What I feel is actually, or what I see is that, to answer your question, is why they do not see the opportunity, whereas we see the opportunity, is that I believe that like you said, they're quite comfortable, but I don't think they've really been shown the opportunity that's there. That's where the point is. So in terms of embracing new ways of targeting customers and acquiring customers, that opportunity is not being presented to them, and it's not being understood well, I would believe, in terms of the strategy of their organizations. So that's where I think the start has to happen, in them understanding, okay, what are the new segments that I can really go after? and that's not been seen. So that's where it's.
To answer your question, I both agree with Amit and Yadav. So one is they're very comfortable in what they do. They know traditional works, and we still believe that traditional works. But then again, in order to show the opportunity, we have had a traditional lack of data in the market. So if you ask the panel what's digital penetration in Sri Lanka, we'll all have very close answers, but not the same answer, because we don't have a credible one single source of data. And if my clients ask me what's my competition doing, what's my share of voice, etc., to talk that language in terms of data, we still don't have one trusted source of data to show that opportunity. So I personally feel that's the one biggest block in driving digital to the next stage. If I may name some players like, either it be Comscore, AC Nielsen, LMRB, a lot of these research agencies need to also up their game. And like I said, the whole market has to move together. So even though we have the Dialogues, the Etisalas, the Unilevers of the world really doing world-class stuff, in order for the rest of the market to move along, they need to have a reason to believe that data that we can demonstrate. So I personally feel that's the biggest issue that we have in the market currently. Yeah.
I don't entirely agree with the question itself, or the doubt rather, that what we have seen over the last 1 year is that spends are moving a lot towards digital, right? Obviously, from a 7% marketing spend, it won't move to 70 overnight. It will take a while, and obviously we'll have to prove what we are worth. And I think brand managers are seeing those results, and that's why they're moving those budgets. The thing is, the first and the biggest concern that we have as marketers is visibility, right? Are we being visible enough? And secondly, are we inciting a certain kind of action or not? And also because data proves all of this, then that's the reason we are scrutinized more. Nothing against television or traditional, but the biggest advantage of digital is you pay when you achieve your KPI, unlike any other metric. But yeah, those mediums have been here for long, and we are a little more comfortable with them. So there will be that kind of inertia. But we see some good signs as well. We see brand managers moving their monies to digital. Lack of adequate sciences and adequate resources and the tech. Programmatic, we have very few names here, right? So, and obviously because we know that two large giants, they cover nearly all of digital market. So it's safe to place your bets there. So I don't think you can blame clients here as such. It's just that, it's process of the evolution right now. So I think very soon, and this market's growth will be much faster than, other markets close by. Because everything is getting bombarded on this market very soon, newer kinds of advertising, newer formats, content all of a sudden. So, there is a lot to receive in very short span of time. So there could be chaos for a slight duration. But I think this would be one of the quickest market to learn from whatever is happening right now. So we are amidst chaos right now, but this is the good time to be here. In the next 2 years, I think things will be very different, and we'll have a more logical and more scientific way of investing our advertising monies.
You mentioned two giants, of course. It's Facebook and Google, I believe. Yeah. So digital campaign without Facebook. Can you imagine it? Without placing your money on Facebook. Would it be possible, and do you think, would it be possible in the future? At least one campaign without Facebook.
Sorry?
At least one campaign without Facebook.
It could be and Facebook. Without, I don't know. See, like Amita said, market measurement has been a problem here. We don't really know what the absolute numbers are. Also, the disadvantage with Facebook and Google is, one of the terms that we hear very often from our clients is, how do you protect ourselves from ad frauds? And these are the two giants, wherein you can't scrutinize anything. Whatever they throw at you, you have to buy. But yes, I don't think anybody is thinking, neither the agencies or the advertisers, because agencies have to show a certain kind of performance, and so do brand managers, right? So it's a safe thing to have. But yeah, I don't think whether it's wise enough either, to think of a campaign without. You'd be able to, add.
just to add to it, so it not necessarily is a mind-blowing thing because it depends again on your target audience. I mean, we've had really niche targeted campaigns where we've not even thought about Facebook. So I mean, yes, Facebook caters to I don't know, maybe 6 or 6.5 million Sri Lankans, but it again boils down to who your target audience is. So there probably might be a niche set which probably doesn't even log on to Facebook. So again, it would depend on that.
I think Facebook is just again one space. So what we've tried to do over the past, I would say 4 months, is actually try out new ways of going after customers, really. So, I mean, if anybody thinks Facebook is the only space where customers are to do your advertising, I think that's a myth and that's wrong. So I believe you need to start exploring. So that's something that we've been doing, and you shouldn't also rely on Facebook and take it too seriously also all the time. So I would say, because a lot of changes are coming their way, which might restrict a lot of marketers.
Cool. So we have run campaigns without Facebook, especially when it comes to lead generation campaigns. We've seen better results on other platforms, so we have run campaigns. But in the larger scheme of things, Facebook is the catalyst. So let's say if I was to convince a client who does not believe in digital or hasn't tried, first thing I'd throw at them is Facebook. So it's generally the foot in the door, and then to drive further sort of spend. So I mean, that's typically what works from an agency perspective. So yes, life without a campaign without Facebook is possible, but in the larger scheme of things, it is part of the ecosystem, and I wouldn't sort of try and take it away from general clients.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, I mean, this is a question sometimes some of our clients also ask from us, okay, what can we do beyond Facebook? Right? This is a question that, see, my answer in most of the cases is actually, it's not about beyond Facebook or within Facebook or whatever. I mean, it all depends on what you want to achieve. Right? What's your communication objective? If Facebook can serve that purpose, of course, Facebook has to be inclusive in your campaigns. If there is another way where you can achieve the same objectives, of course, you'll have to try this. I mean, we need to look at it from a holistic point of view rather than actually taking individual platforms and see whether this fits or not, right? End of the day, what we are trying to do is, we have a message to be delivered to the target audience, and we need to actually work with the various number of different platforms. So, a lot of factors affect, I mean, including the budget being the biggest one, right? Deciding where to go.
So in your opinion, what kind of features a platform should have, like a programmatic platform or ad network or any other player who is coming in the market, to make sure that Sri Lanka advertisers would go in favor of it? Should it be some specific targeting sets, possibilities to ensure performance, I don't know, brand safety assurance, or what kind of features do you think are essential? And what kind of features make Facebook and Google so successful in this market, besides the fact that they have huge international names? But what in the essence is essential for you and for your clients, and how do you imagine a player who can come here and do good in the market?
Actually, it's a very, very relevant and very good question, actually. I mean, say one of the biggest feature that we would expect is ability to segment or identify audience segments based on certain, behavioral aspects and affinity aspects which are unique for Sri Lankans, right? I mean, most of the affinity categories and the targeting tactics that we get in the platforms, including Google, Facebook, and a lot of the other platforms that we use, are actually developed from a perspective of the Western world. I mean, a simple example is if you look at the affinity categorization of GDN, right? Sometimes those categorizations might not 100% perfectly fit, our audiences. So if a platform like Eskimi can actually really dig deeper into the data of the actual users of Sri Lanka and then come back with certain affinity categories where we can actually target, that would be actually a real great achievement in terms of popularizing programmatic advertising. Safan?
Yeah, so I agree with Amita, like what happens with Google, Facebook is the audience categorization is based on the US habits and sort of behaviors. So probably if you can come up with a Sri Lankan customized way of targeting, categorizing users, that will be great. So there's certain unique features for every market, and understanding the audience from a Sri Lankan perspective and giving us the ability to sort of target them specifically will be a great advantage. And my second point is the clients love visible results or end results. Now the reason why they like Facebook so much is you put something up and then they see the immediate results. They see engagement, they see comments, so they have that bit of a dopamine hit then, and they realize, okay, things are working. So whether it be a live dashboard or some way of showing, unfortunately I wish e-commerce was a bit better where we can connect the dots and close the sale or something like that, then we can show the actual results. But some way of showing them that things are working, this is the right way to go about, would be great, a great feature that tool would have. But then again, there is no magic wand. Like I said, the whole ecosystem has to grow, from publishers to the DMPs to the clients themselves. So that knowledge levels, I think, has to grow a lot faster. And events such as these are needed a lot, I feel. So that's why.
I think the willingness is growing, right, to at least experiment with this entire thing. The reasons being, firstly, it's too much of a hassle, right? Even if you were to talk to an ad network, it's somewhat a hassle, right? And the flexibility, the pricing is not as dynamic as it is with programmatic. So, you know, clients are making up their minds to at least give it a shot, you know. I think the two big things which are acting as hurdles right now is, one is, of course, the clear definition of viewability, right? And that keeps fluctuating, right? So there is no very clear definition of, and it differs from DSPs as well. So if we have some standardization there, I think that will give clients a little more confidence. And the second thing is, of course, pricing, right? To begin with, when I have to pilot something, I need to be comfortable with the price point. And right now, maybe it's because of, you know, lack of too many players. But the pricing is a very deterrent factor in many cases. Even to try things out, I need to start small and see how does it work. So I think if we can control these two things, you know, one is standardize the entire definition, explain viewability very clearly, and give everybody a chance to be able to start small. I think then we'll see, you know, more experimentation on this front.
And just, I think, to add, I think especially for the smaller teams, if there's a single dashboard, right? Because otherwise you have your digital marketing team checking Facebook platform, Google, if you're running on Twitter, likewise, and then the reach that you get. So you'll be adding Amit on Google and then Amit on Facebook and then counting Amit as Google, right? So I mean, things like that would also kind of, you know, take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think in terms of features, like what Amita said, localizing some of the, you know, targeting features are something that will make it more meaningful. And visibility is really key because, you know, at the end of the day, accountability comes in what you spend and whether it works and which platform works. So making it much more user-friendly for anybody to really understand is really key.
Any questions from the audience? We are talking, so maybe someone has something related to the topics that we are discussing.
Just raise your hands.
Don't be afraid of too sleepy. Okay, so my next and one of the last questions would be, so from what I'm hearing from you, one of the main issues in the market is to ensure visibility, to ensure viewability, and to localize So none of the platforms that you are dealing with can do that, or can it? Like Facebook, I'm not talking about Facebook or Google in a way because it's our competition. It's not our competition, actually. We have everything integrated into Eskimi DSP. That's why we can all offer a single view platform. But even with traditional media, I would say clients are happy because they see the ads. So do you think it's the same thing in this market? It doesn't matter that much about the actual efficiency regarding the campaign. But we are always really surprised when client head of marketing, who is a man above 40, asked, why haven't I seen my campaign? And we're like, okay, but it was a beauty product oriented to females 80-25. So thanks God you haven't seen that campaign. So do you see such issue in the market? Is it a lack of education, or is already past and clients understand that, okay, efficiency doesn't really mean that I must see the ad?
That is part of the problem, but it's just a small part. We still have clients who would love to see their ads, and then when I go for a review and I go with the other team, the TV, radio, and they have cuttings of fresh ads, they have videos of the commercials, and then I have numbers and graphs. So we have to understand that we still come from a very traditional mindset, and we are actually pushing them out of their comfort zone. So we need to have ways and means of making sure they feel comfortable in this new space. So the decision makers are still there, but we have the new brand managers, the more energetic, enthusiastic guys are looking to make waves, make changes, and with better data analytics and, like I said, personalization. It's not that Facebook or Google or whoever does not have that, but there's loads of room to improvement. With those factors, I think we can definitely drive it further, but that is a small part of the problem because the decision makers are still there, my opinion.
You know, I think it's more of a cultural or a regional issue. You know, we still call a campaign big when we see it on television and in print. You know, and we hear spots of it and we see big billboards of it. And it's not limited to this market alone. I'll give you examples of Amazon and Flipkart, right? Not very far from here. And they are e-com platforms, right? They spend millions on app downloads as well. But they're also one of the largest advertisers on print and television, right? So the product is digital, it's on your smartphone, but still that doesn't stop you from spending on ATL. And again, you know, I mean, a lot of us have been groomed to, you know, see 70% allocated on ATL and ATL. So digital doesn't even qualify as ATL. On ATL and the remaining, you know, 5, 7, 9%, it's growing, but you know, that's where we are. So I think, yeah, you can't really blame a few individuals here or people who, you know, are the final decision maker. I think it's throughout. But what's happening is increasingly everybody is understanding because, you know, like media is fragmenting, so is the audience, so is the preferences. So yeah, I think that realization is happening slowly. But yes, right now, I mean, that's the stage we are in, and we are moving towards the right direction, I guess.
So I believe dialogue doesn't have such issue.
Yeah, actually, it goes back again to the culture and also the power sources, right, in the organization, right? Like if you're saying a 40-year-old didn't see the ad, you should explain to the 40-year-old that, you know, this is how it works. They need to understand how this whole ecosystem of, you know, digital advertising works. So if they're aware of it, you know, then it's not an issue. So I think it's a responsibility of those who run these kind of campaigns or this kind of strategy to really educate the organization of how digital works, digital marketing. I think that's the most important thing, rather than face the issue of a very bad decision where they say, I didn't see the ad, stop the budget. You know? So I think that's where the role has to be played by people who are managing these areas to really create that awareness. For us, the issue is different. You know, when we see a dialogue ad, we'll ask, how come I had been paying the app? So no, we have a different problem. It's not about, you know, not seeing the ad.
So do you plan your campaigns based on what dialogue did? So may I ask, how do you plan? So how do you define the success for Etisalat and then for dialogue? From a since you're working with a brand directly, how does it go?
No worries. So again, it boils down to what we want to achieve. So, for example, whether it's brand equity, whether we want to increase the top of mind, whether we want to kind of drive more loyal users, or way more bottom of the funnel, whether we want to actually target acquisition. So based on that, then we would have certain benchmarks, metrics, because we've experimented with a lot of mediums and we have an idea. So based on that, we would kind of know whether a campaign is working. One of the, so again, we don't have, thankfully we don't have anybody asking us saying, hey, how come I didn't see my ad? But we have a lot of impatient brand managers out there saying, okay, so what happened? It's like, I launched the campaign today, how many downloads, how many acquisitions, how many leads, that kind of thing. So, so I think they are so kind of going through the learning curve of, although digital is kind of instant and, people are coming from an instant gratification kind of culture, there is a little bit of time for campaigns to optimize, to kind of, deliver. So they are also kind of learning through that. So, so I think, yeah.
But do you see any internal shifts, for instance, from branding to performance campaigns? Is it happening in your organization?
Yes, a lot. I mean, I think predominantly we are more focused on acquisition, because once again, if we can acquire a customer 10 times or at least even 5 times cheaper than any other medium, it's a no-brainer. So that's where we've biggest focus is, but doesn't mean that we we don't use digital for building up top of mind or engaging with our customers as well. So it's obviously a balance. Okay.
Yes, good question. Whether you asking about performance or awareness. Actually, in our case, it's more performance, because we actually promote 2 digital products in the market, and we're quite successful at it. So what we look at mainly is how many downloads happen, and then how it got converted into retention and revenues. So we really track that to that level. So whatever we spend in terms of on those products are basically looked at from that perspective. So we really don't use it much at the moment for really awareness, because we believe that can be achieved from more ATL. But when it comes to digital, because we actually promote these 2 digital products, we look at it from performance perspective. So that's how we look at it.
Okay, but don't you see a bit of conflict? Because if a person haven't seen your ad on digital, there is no way for platforms to identify if a user is interested. And because the user journey in any platform, not only programmatic, goes that you attract, you identify, then you create those cookie pools or DMP IDs, or depending on the platform, something else. And then you are pushing some performance campaign for them. So maybe that can also be an issue in the market, that clients in general, we want to keep on traditional media and spend awareness budgets on traditional, but then it comes to performance when they want to go on digital and think that, okay, so how came that it does not perform the way I would like it? So maybe that's a gap of understanding that everything should go in one place, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I believe it's the type of product you sell. If you're selling digital products, I mean, one of the things that most people think is I just need to do my spend on digital. But for example, if you're selling an app, let's say, that app has to be, the awareness of the app has to be created on traditional media if it's a mass product. That awareness has to come to the consumer. And then you actually get the customer to be more familiar with what the brand looks like, what it stands for, and then when it comes to the digital space, you actually try and give more information as to, go and get the benefits of the product. So that's how we will look at it. So I would say that, you need to really run only awareness on digital, but you need to actually look at the type of product you sell, create the awareness on ATL and BTL, and then drive towards performance on digital. So that's the kind of success that we've seen in the type of digital products we sell. We also kind of did it on trial and error. I would say, like what was explained by my colleague Gabe. Dialogue. It's basically, initially we started looking at creating awareness-based campaigns for digital products on the digital platform. It didn't work really, because what we found is the number of downloads were not really great, but then when you start going on ATL and supporting that campaign, that's where it really helps. So you need to kind of complement each of these initiatives for the product, I would say. So it's just not that on ATL or awareness.
What's the opinion from agencies? Do you think that there is a gap, or do you think that the market itself gives such rules? They're traditional, must be there to make sure that awareness is huge?
Well, I think in like most of the techno-driven categories, like telcos, performance is obviously, plus of course in the hospitality, travel trade, performance is always seen as one of the biggest objectives. But still in consumer goods market, I see simply because two factors. One, which Safan already mentioned, the data, the research data, lack of research data to support the digital performance. Still they are a little bit reluctant on putting a lot of efforts on performance-driven campaigns. And the second thing is the digital distribution. The e-commerce infrastructure is not that stable in Sri Lanka. So the measurability of performance-driven campaigns is a bit of a question mark. Because of that, I see more money being pushed towards branding-driven campaigns on consumer goods areas. But I see actually, I don't see it only as something which happens in this market. I sense that it kind of the same situation in other markets across the world when it comes to FMCG, especially because, for example, one example, why Facebook launched reach and frequency advertising, simply because they know that they need to actually move the same direction the TV and other traditional mediums are moving if you want money from the FMCG sector, right? So that's an indication that even in other markets, the consumer good industries are, the budgets which comes to digital are heavily spent on branding, more than for performance-driven campaign. But in electronics, consumer electronics, to telcos, to hospitality, and so many other categories where the distribution infrastructure is strong, digital distribution infrastructure is strong, it makes sense for them to put more money onto performance-driven campaigns because, it's only 3 clicks away of getting a conversion. Yeah.
I would like to know one of the main reasons why brands and even sometimes agencies go a little bit more heavy on ATL, especially TV and print versus digital. Could it be credibility? Let's say, especially when it comes to either a new brand or a new product, if you see it on TV, oh, it's real. But if you see on Facebook, oh, is it real? Is that the issue?
Personally, I don't think that's the issue. I think digital has already proven how powerful it can be. If I may look at instances when there were elections and there was content thrown around, there was tweets that went out that shaped people's opinion. I want to tread safe now. So that credibility and the power of influencing is there. I think it's a lot more powerful than TV, in my opinion. But I also feel the game we are at in terms of digital, even when during days when Amit and I started, was we were trying to always sneak away budgets from ATL onto digital, and it's still the same game. We still haven't evolved as a market into hardcore performance campaigns where we have attribution modeling, attribution windows. Okay, this banner drove the awareness. At what point did they go and convert? So as a market, we have not grown to that sort of stage, I feel. So still, the awareness we believe as a market is always created by ATL, because we always have that thought in the mind is in terms of, okay, digital is still 8 million in terms of penetration as opposed to 20 million population. Therefore, awareness would come from TV. So that sort of perception is always there in the minds of our clients. So we always feel that the mass awareness would come from ATL, and then we try and convert that. But I know that there is no link in driving that awareness onto digital, but we always see a peak in searches, a peak in interest in terms of digital, so it does drive that ripple effect down onto digital. So that's the way the market works at this point, and hopefully in the coming years we'll be talking about attribution, how much did this banner contribute towards the conversion. So at that point, maybe then we talk about the awareness that you're talking about. But as of now, I feel the market is still here.
Any more questions?
Between media, you're talking within digital. So that's the stage that we are in, right? The only other kind of attribution that you see is in case of app downloads or whatever, right? So you try to correlate it with when the spot aired. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, attribution is some distance away right now. I mean, getting into that conversation right now.
But I think a simple thing is just to kind of correlate your ATL efficiency is to kind of map your Google search trends. I mean, if your ATL is really hitting, you'd see spikes in your searches, and at that point, if you're there to capitalize using SEM or other SEO, then I mean, so there will never be, I mean, a world without ATL. So it's again on how you play the game. You know, which player would be taking the baton first, and which player would be kind of doing the final lap. So it all boils down to that.
I just have a comment, not a question, but a comment. I think all you gentlemen touched on these on the right things here. Neeraj, you spoke about the chaotic times we are in, right? And I think Safan, you spoke about how the early days with you and Amit, you know, how when you sneaked digital budgets away from the ATL thing. There is also this other factor here that, remember, with the proper ATL, like the TVs and all that, is where the creative boys are. Right now, I can safely say this, I hope it's a media forum here, so we won't have a creative agency beating me up. But the creative boys are in that whole area of big budget TV commercials and stuff like that. So when you do a big budget TV commercial, that 80-20 rule has to apply. So you can't do a 15 million TV commercial and then spend 5 million on TV. Like, you won't be able to buy anything on TV in the first place. So until I think that generation kind of moves out, the generation that embraces that the Mad Men era or the post Mad Men era kind of thing, and that kind of thing moves out, and the other factors like the research data, the data factor in digital, all those come to a head. Right? I don't think we'll see this next phase. So all you guys are right. We are in that evolution space at the moment. It's exciting times for us because it's all news, it's good stuff. It's nice to embrace all these things, but you will always have that. I wouldn't call them haters, but the doubters. You know, you'll always have that still around. Either they will be converted, or they'll move out by a process of evolution. So I think I was listening to all of you guys talking, and all of you are spot on. It's a multiple series of things here. We have had clients who have said, I haven't seen my spot, which was targeted at a 15-year-old. You know, and there were, I mean, I can go back about 20 more years and say we had clients who used to give their young kids to do the TV market, because they will choose the program on which the ads go. I'm talking the good old days, you know. So it's been a complete change from there, and I think we are heading in the right direction. It's much different to what it was, say, 3-4 years ago, right? From the time when Facebook was free, and why should I pay for even a post on Facebook? You know, How many of us get paid for the concept? I mean, we do a Facebook post in a little square and say the same message in that a 30-second commercial has the luxury of saying. Right? How many of us get paid for that little square kind of thing? You know, not the kind of millions that you pay for the TV commercial. Right? So I think, and hats off to Eskimi, I mean, these kind of programs also will help push this whole bar forward, you know, upwards. Oh, this is my
pretty much. Actually, you're spot on. Actually, in terms of actually putting everything together. I mean, as you quite correctly said, like we are right now in kind of like a quite interesting time where things are actually shifting, moving. But what I said, even in answering one of the previous questions, that it can move faster than what we think. I mean, that's what all the brand managers, all the marketing managers need to understand. It can move so rapidly that overnight, I mean, when I say overnight, like in a very quick succession, completely an outsider can come and wipe away your market share. It can happen. Because, I mean, so we are talking about like 8 million in terms of internet penetration. 8 million is a big enough number to make a ripple effect on the 20 million population, right? So you can do that. I mean, we saw that even in politics, right? So if I mean, answering to Indu's question, I mean, if trust is a factor, right? I mean, if you trust social media, for example, to vote in or vote out a certain politician from the office, why wouldn't you trust to buy a product? What you see on digital, right? I mean, I think trust used to be a problem, but right now, I don't think that as a problem, but it's more about a problem about doubters, as he mentioned, right? Whether this works. Because I mean, I have a personal experience like a certain brand which like committed us, okay, you go 100% on digital, right? This budget, we don't have huge budgets to go on ATL. So whatever we have, 100% digital, go out and do your campaign. We were like, oh wow, let's do it, right? And we do the planning and everything, and then we come to the last meeting with the execution plan. Suddenly the doubt sets in. Okay, well, why wouldn't we do at least 2%? Can we like take maybe 500,000 out and let's try one magazine ad? So the doubters are still there, right? But I mean, eventually go away, and we'll come to an era where like, people would trust. But as Safar mentioned, like lot depends on measurements, right? The research data. Because I mean, I talked to a couple of the research agencies recently, and I talked to them and I said, okay, so say for example, for some of the things we did for like Etisalat, none of the digital stuff, social medias comes up in your brand tracker, these things. So you always talk about all the ATL campaigns, whereas the client says us, okay, this campaign worked, let's put more money. And the response, which is actually reasonable from the research agency, see, whatever you are doing on digital is too insignificant for it to get reflected on our research sample. So as you actually keep increasing it, at one point it will get reflected on our survey data, and that until such time we'll have to actually go on an organic growth. So that was the response, which I believe is a reasonable enough answer, because knowing that, I mean, the average digital spend across all categories in Sri Lanka is still hovering around 5% or less, even less than 5%. Yeah.
That's the other factor. You spend a small amount on digital. Say $1 million on digital, and then you can't spend $2 million on research. So the proportions don't work. So we have to up that whole.
It's more like a chicken and egg situation.
Actually, 2 eggs, no chicken.
If you buy digital, you're buying research along with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have more questions? If not, how about the last comments?
Yeah, so I would like you to ask one question, the last one.
if we meet after 1 year, what do you think would have happened in that year in the digital space of Sri Lanka? Do some forecasts and magic projections.
I think the biggest worry that I have, I would say, is that privacy. I think some of the stuff that we are seeing is actually treading into areas of privacy. So that's one of the biggest challenges that I would see that coming our way. Whether certain laws will come in place of how you need to really reach out to customers and what kind of information that you need to start using. And so many brands will kind of be questioning service providers and agencies of okay, what I'm doing, is it ethical, or on what lines do they fall? Are these legal, illegal? So I believe that's the kind of discussion we might be having 1 year down the line from telco perspective, I see.
What I see is what will mostly happen is standardization of the measurements, KPIs, which is actually kind of happening right now, right? See, when we started, I used to remember actually, the clients through agencies, they put money buying direct ads on publishers, and they never even asked the question how many ad impressions were delivered. They never, the clients were never even asking us. We are the ones who are actually going behind the client and hey, look here, you ad delivered this many impressions and this was the click through. So that was the situation. But now we see people are asking the right question, as Safan mentioned. When the clients are asking those questions, the right questions, agencies are now pushed to get our act together, get the KPIs right, the measurements right, because the question about measurability, measurements is nowadays rising. So in 1 year from now, I would see the digital measurements will be way much better than now, and that will actually help clients to make better educated decisions.
True. So what I see is that a lot of things are now falling into place. Even when it comes to research agencies, some of the agencies have come up with digital research products. I wish there was more clients in the house, but some of them feel that there's not enough subscriptions, so they can't support the cost, etc. So chicken egg story again. But still, it's a step in the right direction. They have the numbers and the products. Like what I said, clients are asking the right questions, and at least in the top 25% of our, let's say, clients, they are talking about, they are not looking at digital and ATL separately. They're talking about, here's my marketing objective, you tell me what to do, and then what is the role digital plays in that overall objective. So that one quartile of clients are actually asking the right questions, talking the right language, and then we are now professionally challenged to bring about one one liquid plan that covers all facets. So the conversations are headed in the right direction, the questions are being asked. So I believe that in terms of digital, 1 year from now, we'll have a lot more evolved, lot more knowledgeable audience, clients, ecosystem, and hopefully we'll be in a better place in terms of where digital is.
So again, I think this is touching on something Amita said earlier also. I hope in a year's time, the ecosystem will be more relevant to Sri Lanka in terms of the various affinities and how you can target. But I can say that Amita likes hoppers and Safan likes Kuntu, right? I mean, that would be the dream of all digital marketers to kind of go to that level rather than rely on whatever categories and segments that we have. So I mean, those are the little nuances or the little features that would kind of take it to the next level. And I mean, because otherwise, again, we'll still be in that, to quote Amit, in that close enough stage, but not almost there. I mean, from a telco point of view, we have a little bit more of advantage in terms of the data that we have in-house with us. But I think if the industry is to grow, I think a little bit more of a level playing field for them also would kind of take it to the next level. Yeah.
I think in the next 1 year, we'll see at least one big campaign that's digital first. And I'm very confident about that happening in the next 12 months, right? Who does it first will be a race, but I'm sure somebody will do it. Because most often what we see is an ATL idea, a TV idea or a print idea, then extended to different mediums. We are already seeing execution of such ideas that are digital first. The scale is not that great, but I'm very sure in the next 12 months we'll have one multi-million worth of campaign which is digital first and then extended to other media.
So we have two participants in that race. Okay, so thank you very much.